Welcome to The Conscious Creative from MuseWorks Audio. The Conscious Creative is a podcast featuring interviews with artists who are doing transformational work in their craft and in their communities. Join us as we discuss different artistic philosophies, give you brand new tools to bring back to your creative spaces, and build a community of artists dedicated to deepening their relationship with their craft. I'm your host, Mike Irish. Thank you for joining us.
Carrie Herbert is a musician, songwriter, and co-founder of Songkites. Currently, she's focusing on therapeutic songwriting to explore mental health and resilience with artists and communities at a time when we are experiencing increasing global crisis and uncertainty. Today, we talked about her relationship with creativity, her time in Cambodia, and her project Songkites, her PhD on therapeutic songwriting, and her service of custom songwriting as well. I want to take a moment to talk about my friends over at Soundfly. They make incredible online music courses that you can either take on your own with a low-cost subscription or one-on-one with a professional mentor helping you every step of the way. It's like a choose-your-own adventure but for music education. You can learn beat making, mixing, songwriting, composing, arranging, synths, home recording, anything. If you go the mentor route, they'll build a customized learning plan around your personal goals and needs and provide you with in-depth feedback on your work. But if you don't want that hands-on support, the courses are creative and niche enough for you to find your groove and have fun doing it at your own pace. Whether you want to learn how to orchestrate for a string ensemble, build a low-end heavy trap beat in Ableton Live, or brush up on your harmonic theory to make more compelling and emotive music, there's definitely a course for you. And the best part is I've partnered with them to get you 15% off your monthly subscription. Just head over to soundfly.com to sign up and enter code CreativePod15 to let them know I sent you and to start improving on all the musical things that you've always wanted to learn. And one final thing before getting into the episode, I'm working on creating a new service at MuseWorks Audio. Single rollout packages, which will include professional mixing and mastering of your single from yours truly, professional single art, and 20 days of scheduled, curated, and on-brand Instagram content designed to grow your audience as well as help you monetize your art. If your ears perked up at the idea, please reach out at museworksaudio@gmail.com as I will be launching a beta version of the service soon, which you can try out risk-free. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode with Carrie Herbert. Welcome, Carrie, to The Conscious Creative. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Mike. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm so looking forward to talking with you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'd love for you to share your relationship with creativity. I think you obviously have really interesting thoughts about it from what you do, and where it all began and how it's grown over the years as well.
Wow, it's a big story, that one, and I kind of I always say to people that I'm working with and I'm with that this creativity is in all people, and it's a bit like, that childlike ability to create. So I guess it began when I was a child, and I love to sing and to kind of, we used to make plays that when I was a kid with my brothers and, show them to the family like lots of kids do. And I think it's that innate sort of sense of creativity that was just always kind of strong and alive. And I think then over the years I did photography and I became a musician, but it was kind of always a bit on the sideline. It wasn't my primary career, and I found myself, for all sorts of reasons, going into medicine and nursing. And but even then, I was very fortunate that my tutors and my teachers were very into the arts and healing, either in the capacity of play therapy with children in hospitals or music therapy in hospitals. So I kind of found myself immersed with some very inspiring teachers who really were passionate about the arts. And I ended up doing my nursing dissertation on using photography and looking at the experience of living with joy and sorrow in managing chronic illness. So it was kind of there, even though it was kind of not the foreground. And then in sort of then in recent years, it's become much more foreground, and sort of brought back into the center when I started to train to be an arts psychotherapist.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll talk, I think, a little bit more later about what that is and what that entails, and your work doing that. I think I think the next sort of question, the next place I'd like to dive in with you, is your work in Southeast Asia. I know that um, you've done a lot of NGO work, right?
Sure, yeah, I think most of my, well, for the last 20 plus years has been really running and co-founding an NGO. Yeah, that was called Ragamuffin, and founded that with my business partner Kit. And that's been very much about using all of the arts, including music, but using the arts in healing and well-being. And that's what took me out to Southeast Asia the second time, because the first time I was there, I was working as a nurse. So I had a kind of an immersion into Cambodia in my sort of like early 20s, and then came back in a very different capacity, looking at how creativity can, support mental health and well-being in a context such as Cambodia. So I've had and then since then had many years of immersion into using the arts in healing and well-being, and really, many different projects over the years of really working cross-culturally, not just in Cambodia, but in lots of parts of the world. And
Okay.
how to
And
begin healing, yeah.
is that almost all with so you said Ragamuffin is the name?
Yeah, so that's the organization that we set up back in
Yeah.
Wales, UK. And then that work has been done through the years, really working with all sorts of different groups, and really with this kind of vision for training young Cambodians in using the arts in healing, but supporting organizations and organizations' well-being, especially those organizations and that are working to support very vulnerable or traumatized, or groups in crisis. And so it has sort of many dimensions to it. It's enabling others to find that gift of creativity and healing within themselves, and supporting others to be facilitators of helping others to find that within themselves. And then in the midst of that, in 2000 and I think it was 2013, I met Ewan Gray, who's an Australian musician and producer, and we kind of came together and found a powerful synergy for really looking at how can we really focus on bringing together this therapeutic approach then with professional music production, and also really nourishing and nurturing young artists and helping them to find, their their kind of essence and their kind of creative congruence, their ability to express, then also to find, their own sort of sense of being a role model and a leader within the field of the arts in Cambodia. So that became a really groundbreaking project because, for many reasons, it was sort of like the first time that the new sort of season of original music had chance to really emerge since after the war. So it felt like we were just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like being an orchestrator, like a kind of a facilitator, like a conductor of opening up a channel and a space for these people that really broke some new ground. And it wasn't really our intention. We were doing a small project, but it kind of became something that was almost felt like we were, a kind of channel for enabling something to open up in Cambodia again. And it was really, really moving and inspiring and rich and challenging to see then young artists kind of really find their voice and their their song. And I think that's kind of at the heart of Songkites, is for people to find their song. And it was Ewan actually who found the word Songkites. It's based on a Khmer word which means klingike, which means the musical kite that's flown after the war, or flown during a time of harvest. and they're made of bamboo, and they're beautiful. They're really ornate and decorated, and made of bamboo. When you fly them, they make musical notes. And so it felt really fitting that this would be the name of the project. It really is about kind of finding, that unique musicality that belongs to that person, and then set it free and just let it kind of be released into the world. Yeah.
Wow. And just to clarify for the audience, that's you were talking about your project Songkites there, right? Yeah. Which you released two albums of original music from was it just Cambodian artists or? Yeah.
So what's happened is we started with it was called Songkite Season 1, which we worked with 10 artists, and I mean the whole original aim was not necessarily the product, it's the kind of process, but because we got sort of funding from the BBC, and there was a requirement for songs to be produced and released, that we ended up making an album, and then also the songs we used on a TV series for young people called Lloyd, which was really powerful TV series. So it kind of gave these young people an opportunity for their music to go further, and so we produced that project, and then another project called Season of Love, which was the second album. And then we did a smaller project, a kind of more of a collaborative project called Time for Remembrance, which was really looking at how can the history and the messages from the grandparents and the elders of Cambodian society kind of channel a message for the future through young artists and their music. So that was another smaller but powerful project.
Wow. Are there any real specific stories that you have of really witnessing transformation in an artist's work or anything like that, or in the way that they show up in the world even?
Sure. I mean, I would rather they could be here now and speak to you directly. It's like I feel slightly a conduit for their voices, and at the same time, I think each one of them had a story to tell, an experience, and only a very sort of like a small percentage had written original songs before, and I think the whole aim of Songkites is to enable almost like the soul that's at the essence, whatever is the most important thing, whatever is the most challenging thing, or something that really needs to come through. And a lot of it was about helping people to find their identity. And I never forget one of the first season of Songkites. His name's Karmpik, which means black diamond. He wrote a song called "Who I Am," and it's really a song about just kind of coming into being who you are and having this sense of identity, and also finding your voice. And he's got a phenomenal soul voice, and I remember sitting next to his parents when he was performing, and they hadn't heard him sing, and I don't know, it was so moving to see them so moved, and for him to just be celebrated, and also to express who he is, and I think that's kind of at the core of it, is that sense of finding your sense of self and your identity and your essence, and then the courage and the support to be who you really are. And so each of the, if I went through all the songs, they would have a specific story to really demonstrate that, whether it was a story about forgiveness or about coming home to family, the importance of family, or navigating, challenges in relationships, or it really was holding every dimension of what it's like to live in youth culture in Cambodia, and what it's like to kind of be yourself in the context of a very rapidly changing youth culture. So many experiences, and also the integration of traditional music, Cambodian music, within that. And I know that there was one of our Songkites, he plays the draw, which is a traditional instrument. And I remember him telling this story of he was, I up on the Cambodian border, and he was playing the draw, and the Thai soldiers came over to find out what he was doing, and once they realized he was playing an instrument and it was all safe, he was describing how it wasn't very long before they were all singing and dancing and having this sense of connectedness. And when he spoke about this story, he was talking so passionately about how music can transcend borders and can transcend complex borders, and can bring people together in ways that maybe some of the other arts, I think all arts do this, but when we're trying to talk and work it out, the arts bring people together in ways that are beyond words. And I think that's what's so profound about this, especially about this universal language of music. And he was certainly kind of, and he's lived this world of really kind of going and crossing borders and bringing this music out into the world. So yeah, many stories, Mike, almost like we could be for hours.
Yeah, wow. Those two were really beautiful, and I can just tell that you have such a wealth of experience, and you've just seen so many. I mean, just being in a different culture and just experiencing that. You said you were there for the past 20 years on and off, or?
I guess that's correct. Yes. We first started working in 2001 in our, kind of commuting back and forth. We moved to Asia in about a few years after that. So, and I think it's interesting when you say, what are the experiences of where it's had an effect on people's lives. And I kind of feel like every single time I've had the opportunity to be with someone and enable their creativity to come through, whether it's been music or, like, we integrate all the arts into Songkites as well, or whether it's making an image, it's every moment feels like just so profound, because something comes through from within a person that is just so rich and full of wisdom and expression, and almost like a way of making meaning and making sense of their experience in the world. So it's just thousands of stories of how powerful the arts have been.
Yeah. Did you have an experience for yourself that really catalyzed? Because you said you went as a nurse originally, and then you came back with the mission of Ragamuffin with more of a creative, I guess, creative arts therapy sort of mindset. Was there something that catalyzed you to come back after your time?
Sure.
Yeah, as a nurse.
Yeah, I think it's the question. I think it's I think it's what's really forged the whole work has been going through it yourself. And I kind of feel like like I said, the arts have been always kind of around in my life, and they became very foreground because when I first went to Cambodia as a nurse, I was really naive and young, and kind of, all the goodwill and good intentions in the world to kind of make a difference, but found myself in a war zone, and really wasn't expecting it to be so severe, and it became a life-changing experience for me. It really did. It really woke me up, almost like kind of broke me open in terms of like, who I was and what I was, investing my life in, and it really kind of it was that then that acted as almost like a kind of inoculation, like a catalyst for this deeper journey of really looking at, so what is life all about, and that's what led me into a couple of things. One was how I met my business partner Kit, and he was involved in the arts, so there was a kind of connection there that was really powerful. And then also I started training and started going into arts therapy myself, and went into an arts therapy training course, and that is where everything just started to click and make sense. It's like bringing all these worlds together and like, oh yeah. But a lot of it was my own healing journey, and understanding, what my life experiences had sort of forged in me, and how powerful the arts are, to make sense of that. And songwriting has been very profoundly important to me expressing and making sense of all sorts of different situations. So yeah, the inside out story. I think that's what the whole work is about for me. It's
Yeah.
about we find it within, and then that's what we give to the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Wow, wow, that's such incredible work that you've done, and I can only imagine the intensity of it at times. So my hat's off to you for taking that path and continuing to be so brave with it. It's really incredible.
Wow, thank you. I think it's a it's a people often say to me, especially when I was running a bigger organization, they would say, that must be so stressful to deal with all the trauma, and I always say to people, actually, it's such an honor, it's such a, for people to trust you with the most vulnerable parts of themselves, and then this incredible gift of creativity that everyone has that not only can hold it, it's like it's just blows my mind, it's just how is this gift of healing that we all have inside of us can make sense of almost sometimes the impossible. And I just feel like sometimes I just feel a bit of a channel for that, just a it's so moving and so humbling and so inspiring and so so profound to be a witness to people's journey in these very deep landscapes. So yeah, it's I feel like I've received so much, through this
Wow,
work. Yeah, it's been very, very moving.
wow, wow.
Mm.
Wow. So now moving forward to where you're at and what you're working on now, you're writing your PhD on therapeutic songwriting, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, I mean, you have a wealth of data to to talk about in your PhD. But what are your findings and your thoughts so far as you've been working through it, and maybe maybe you have some clarity looking back through it in retrospect. Um, yeah, I'd love to hear about what your findings and your thoughts have been so far.
Yeah, it feels such, in fact, I'm still doing my research. I'm just doing my last bit of research here in the
Okay.
UK, and with a group of amazing songwriters. So I'm just feeling really like sparky, with the privilege of being able to be with this group, and so moved. And I think I think what it's kind of I think what is at the heart and soul of this PhD is really providing an experience through this Songkites process that is really enabling people to get to drop into their essence or rediscover who they really are, to kind of sort of like just kind of almost find that place through meditation and image making and songwriting, and then to articulate the things that are either troubling them the most or that matter the most in these kind of crazy days we're living in. And it's kind of like, and for me, what I'm finding is one, that whole process is just so aligning, and especially powerful when, you know, especially in the arts, people have had a really hard time because people have lost their jobs, there's been no work, and just the chance just to kind of reconnect into that essence of their creative spirit, and then to have the space to really articulate not only what that might be, but to really express, how hard it's been through these times with COVID, and for them to find, that voice that really needs to say what they need to say, and then to channel that into music and song is like, it's like these vessels, these vehicles that can kind of carry everything that almost sometimes feels just too overwhelming or too much. And I think within the project, every possible issue has come up because life goes on as well, and there's people are managing all sorts of complexity. And I think the whole kind of premise of the project is, can therapeutic songwriting help us to navigate, and can it help us to find a deeper resilience and well-being? And it's almost kind of like singing back to me, yeah, 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 all the time. It's kind of because people's experiences are just showing that again and again and again. It's so it's so supportive. And I think the most important thing is that kind of coming right into your essence of who you are. Because I think when you feel congruent and in yourself, then you've got a much greater capacity to adapt and to navigate, the most complex and chaotic circumstances. So yeah, it's like wow, and so many powerful songs and stories, and I've been doing my own music sort of research alongside it and songwriting into that as a way of really again doing that inside out sort of like process, as it's a participatory action research project. So it's really about kind of everyone being a researcher of the process and learning together about what this means. And yeah, so it's been amazing, and I'm still in the midst of it. So
yeah, I look forward to the end product of that. I'm sure you'll be. I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to find and express concisely the ultimate findings, and I look forward to reading that.
It's interesting because that feels like a really. I was just talking today with one of my colleagues about how important it is when we have a vision for something that we almost can imagine into that ripple effect, even if we don't know what on earth that means. Because it's like, because for me it feels like this is not about doing a PhD, even though it is of course about a PhD. It's more about kind of getting something out into the world and finding a way for it to kind of be used by others and given to others, and so I like that sense of expectation for receiving something, because I want to release it in the same way as those songs are released. So yeah.
I think that kind of leads into the next question is, on a micro level, I think we can see very easily, and I absolutely agree that songwriting can be so healing. And I wonder what what effect it could have on the health of our society as a whole, more on a macro level. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Wow. Well, it's if we're all kind of vibration, and I kind of believe that everything is got sound. Everything is alive with sound and vibration, and there's so much evidence for that, and it's so known that, and even that origins of creation is sound and vibration. And I guess there's so much challenge and so much crisis in the world, and so much communication that is maybe has vibrations that is negative or kind of destructive. And I'm almost feeling like if there can be a greater force of a vibrational quality of sound through songs and music that is life-giving and positive and uplifting, and also holding and channeling the destructive forces that we see and that we know are part of being human, rather than using them to kind of, I kind of feel like, yeah, absolutely, to create a new degree of consciousness and to awaken us to who we are and how interconnected we are and how beautiful this planet is, and how much we need to bring that life and that love and that vitality into not only every cell of our being, but every relationship and every connection. And I know that's super challenging. I don't want to be idealistic or romanticized about it, but I kind of feel passionate that seeing how that works at this micro level in sharing music and songs, and people who it's like when you've been to a really good concert, you just can feel just like, oh yeah, now that's going to get me through the next week or the month, right? So yeah, as music and songwriting as a force, and the arts, all of the arts, I think we absolutely need it these days. It almost like it's our survival and oxygen, and that and our communion with nature, for sure. Yeah. And I think especially, I was talking with someone in my course today about how important it is to find safe ways to express and channel, the feelings we have about there being so much destruction in our planet. It's like it's and how our environment is, just slipping away from our very eyes, and how within this vessel of a song we can pour into it, all of that complexity and, our biggest anxiety and fear and rage and sorrow and grief. It's incredible, isn't it, that a song can hold that. And also it can help us to kind of go through all of that emotionality, and it can also bring hope. I just kind of sort of find it mind-blowing. I think this is going to be the heart of my PhD, is like, how can songs and music just hold something that can be otherwise utterly overwhelming for us, and we disempower it. Where do we begin? It's completely disabling in a way, what's going on, but actually when we can channel it into a creative form, and it can make sense of it, it can also carry us through, and I think, and carry others through, and maybe galvanize us to find creative ways of supporting our beloved Earth.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
Something like
Yeah. When I said that you were going to put it, I knew you were going to put it beautifully and concisely. I think that's exactly what I meant. That was really, really incredible, Carrie. Thank you. Thank you for saying that and sharing that.
Thank you.
So I know that you also write custom songs as well as a service for people, and I'd love to hear about your experience doing that, and how it feels to do that, how you approach it, whatever you like to share, really.
Yeah, I think a lot of my songs have been songs I've written for people, and I love that because it takes me almost like into that relationship, and also out of myself, out of my own kind of agenda for songwriting, and it feels like a real honor. It almost feels like, again, back to being sort of a channel for something. And I wrote a song for a friend of mine who couldn't be with his daughter anymore for complex reasons, and he asked me to write this song as a kind of legacy message for her, from his heart. And I think it's interesting. It's a bit like how I work as a therapist. I meet with someone, and I really want to kind of almost really hear the essence of what they're trying to communicate, and channel and find metaphors and metaphorical language they want to use, and really to ignite their creativity and almost find the lyricism in what they're wanting to communicate, and then channel that then into a song. So again, I feel like I'm kind of a facilitator of enabling that to come almost like in through me, and then of course finding references for genre and musical styles and what works for someone, and then the feedback process of like giving people a draft and like looking at does this fit, does this feel right. And that process is always very touching, because I think that's the first time that they feel like you really did hear me, not only what I wanted to say, but the energetic of it. And it's like that kind of that process of witnessing and bearing, and someone's soul, but also reflecting it back in a way that it really resonates and again vibrates with that frequency that was their original intention. So I just find it such a privilege, to kind of be asked and to write that sort of music, and often done things about people who've passed away and died, and memorials, and I'm also a celebrant, so I do memorials and ceremony, and I love then integrating then songs that have been written for that specific occasion to really honor a person. And help them to travel, almost like for them to travel from one world to the next, and also for all their loved ones to be able to grieve and to be supported in that process.
Yeah.
So yeah, that side of things, I feel very privileged and honored
Yeah.
to write in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can only I know when I put out a song for myself that I feel, or when I send a mix back to a client as well, like that's a very intense moment for me personally. Do you find it intense, that moment where you're sending it back? Like, is there I don't know, I guess insecurity with it, or are you more curious, I suppose?
Always insecurity with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's such a, I don't know, even if you're writing for someone else, songwriting, when you're writing from the heart and the soul, it's such a vulnerable process. It's like, and I'm glad, I kind of, it might be a bit of, whether it's anxiety or vulnerability, maybe is the right word.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that sense of like, and you know in your deep heart you want to get it right for someone, and at the same time it's all unknown. Everything is just like, I don't know if this is even anywhere near right. And then you can tell, because I'm always met by, it's the emotional response. It's just, it just, people don't need to actually say anything. You can just feel it. Of course, there's feedback, but it's just that kind of sense of like, you get me, you got it. And then it almost like, the nitty gritty kind of, let's change that word of that lyric. It's kind of, it's just polishing, it's the essence. As long as the essence is there, then it's like, yeah, we got it. But yeah, that vulnerability is I don't want to ever lose that sight of that, because that for me is there's such a beauty in that kind of sense of exposure of the the rawness of the heart, and then we can truly meet each other, that kind of real sense of connection, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. This has been an incredible conversation, Carrie. I really appreciate the time. I have one last question for you before we wrap it up. And it's a question that I ask all my guests: is what impact you want to leave in the world with your creations?
Wow. I think it's back to that concept I was talking about earlier. I kind of feel like if it can in any way, even in the smallest way, enable a person or a community or a group of people to become in greater communion with their true essence, and to be more fully who they are in the world, and feel a sense of being able to be who they are, and to bring their uniqueness, their genius, their themselves into the world, and if that supports them to navigate complexity and challenge, or any life experience that they're going through, and to be able to find more grace and love in their lives. I kind of feel like if it can spark something of that for a single person, then it'd be good enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think I'm gonna have to spend some time songwriting after this conversation, Carrie. Oh my God. So just before we wrap up, is there anywhere, anything that you want to promote, or anywhere that you'd like to be, if people want to reach out or follow your work, or maybe hire you for songwriting? Where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. I'm on Facebook. That's where all of our work in Cambodia goes through Facebook. So it's Carrie Herbert and Carrie Music on Facebook, and I have a website, carriemusic.com. So yeah, sure. If you want to get in touch about the project, or to find out more about what we're doing, then I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, we're kind of trying to build a bit of a community around it. So for future projects, and yeah, if you're interested in therapeutic songwriting, sure, get in touch. That would be awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Carrie.
Thanks, Mike.
I want to say thanks again to Carrie for doing this interview. This was a really, really incredible conversation. She's done so much in her life, and the way she views creativity is the way that I hope I view creativity. One of my favorite things is you can tell how deeply in service to her work she is. You can tell just by the way she takes very little credit for what she does. I think she sees herself more as a witness, and she's just helping bring things to life. And I think that's really impressive, especially when you're going into another culture and offering guidance and helping and healing. And you could tell she does it from an empowering place as opposed to hand-holding. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. She also does the work herself, on herself. She's not trying to fix others. And the moment that was the most beautiful for me, and possibly the most profound moment that I've felt in the podcast so far, is the way she describes songwriting as a vessel to help us deal with something that seems unmanageable. I think is such a profound way of looking at creativity, and it's a new idea for me, maybe not for you, but when she said that, I was just I was kind of awestruck by that. So that's my main takeaways from this conversation. I think that this was one of the most special ones that we've had so far, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. So thanks for listening, and take care, and tune in again next week. All right, see ya.